this?
Stop me if you've heard this one. A gypsy, a bishop, and a rich white boy walk into a haunted house. Okay, so while this might sound like the setup to a dirty joke...
And then... what happened to the girl Melanie?
It's actually the premise of Sacnoth's underappreciated Shadow Heart's precursor, Koudelka.
Indeed. Yes. It is most likely that the events detailed here did take place.
A sort of survival horror/tactical RPG hybrid, Koudelka has more in common with the first Resident Evil game than it does the Shadow Hearts trilogy. Gameplay primarily consists of Koudelka and party wandering the dimly lit corridors of Nementon Monastery, fighting monsters and collecting clues. If you're familiar with other PSOne survival horror classics such as Silent Hill or the granddaddy of the genre Alone in the Dark, you'll recognize the formula. While her 3D presentation may have once proudly stood on the precipice of technological artistry, Koudelka face-planted from grace long ago. In-game character models are jagged and featureless, while the environments are largely indistinguishable shades of black.
What a dark and depressing building.
Admittedly, the pre-rendered backdrops are pretty when clearly lit, but the majority of the game is just too damn dark to navigate. You'll spend much of your adventure staggering into walls while blindly mashing the X button, just hoping to trigger a door or discover an item lost amid the pixelated noise. Furthermore, Koudelka is sorely missing the tense atmosphere and exhilarating jump scares of the games it's blatantly attempting to emulate. In their place, it employs many, too many, random battles. It's impossible to get lost in the immersion of the otherwise engrossing ghost story
I wanted you to lay down and die.
when you're constantly being yanked out just to put a beat down on a set of flying dining room chairs. As much as I enjoy a good tactical battle system, they're just not scary. They trigger much too frequently. The character animations are glacial, and worse yet, they're easy. Your characters will level up after every other encounter, resulting in a party that's laughably overpowered. This essentially eliminates any real need for strategy or critical thought. Most battles are easily resolved in a single turn or two, except the final boss fight, which is not only difficult, but impossible to win without some super secret equipment that you're unlikely to find on your first romp through the mansion. But that's okay. The game expects you to lose, and doing so unlocks the real ending, from which Shadow Hearts picks up the continuity. It's just strange that the only real challenge that the game ever presents is saved for the very last battle.
Don't be silly, there must be something we can do.
Sacnoth attempted to address the inherent shortcomings of the combat system by invoking a classic survival horror trope, equipment limitations. Finite ammo must be scavenged from around the monastery, weapons are breakable, and armor can only be acquired as a rare enemy loot drop. But these forced handicaps do little to counterbalance the sheer abundance of character stat gains, and only succeed in annoying the player. This lack of overall difficulty is a problem that sadly extends to the puzzle sequences. I counted 3 throughout the game that didn't automatically resolve simply by my possessing a necessary key item. And I was able to crack the few remaining challenges with brute force. Technically, Koudelka isn't very good. It's not terrible, but it's very clunky even for a PS1 game. I would urge you to skip it in favor of bigger and better adventures, except the delivery of the story completely redeems all other shortcomings.
What's going on?
This is a tale of 3 very reluctant companions. They're not indestructible teenagers setting off on the adventure of a lifetime. These are world-weary adults who find themselves in a horrific situation beyond their individual capabilities.
Thank God. I was so worried. Are you okay? Are you hurt?
Koudelka, Edward, and James band together because they can't survive the horrors of the monastery alone, and the allure of the mystery within is too great to turn back.
What the?
But they don't get along, not at first. Their discomfort is our entertainment as the group frequently squabbles over plans and goes out of their way to antagonize one another.
In about half an hour, you won't be able to move your body. If you don't find an antidote, you'll definitely die.
Initially, Koudelka asserts herself as the party leader, cutting short the petty bickering between the staunchly religious James and the poetic optimist Edward.
Lord Byron, no? I am not an admirer of his.
Which is almost a shame because their not-so-epic rap battles from dead white poets are hilarious. But as the night wears on, the group eventually bonds over their otherworldly trials and near-death experiences. And as the characters grow to respect one another, they also become more endearing to the player. Perhaps Koudelka would have made a better movie than game, but the writing is excellent and the delivery is surprisingly polished, especially when you consider how notoriously bad PlayStation-era voice acting usually was.
Oh, Barry!
Koudelka also does a commendable job at stringing the player along through the mystery of the adventure.
And what about these monsters that keep appearing? No. There's a bigger secret we have yet to uncover.
Initially, the plot appears to resemble something out of the Silent Hill universe. That is to say, it's nearly incomprehensible, yet nightmarishly creepy. But gradually the game weaves a haunting tale, and the curious bookworm will be rewarded with some truly powerful journal entries that neatly tie off any dangling threads. So, if you find yourself in need of an RPG or survival horror game with a gripping story and memorable characters, but aren't real picky about gameplay or graphics, look no further than Koudelka. For everyone else, you can check out the cutscenes on YouTube. Especially if you plan on following up on the rest of the Shadowheart series. Once again, this is Daria Plays RPGs. Be sure to subscribe for more reviews on forgotten classics, old and new.